Thank you for joining us today to hear about how Verizon migrated 30 data lakes, 30 Hadoop data lakes, which is about 7 petabytes of data in just 10 months. It's unprecedented, and I don't say that lightly. Our hope is that you'll be able to take lessons learned from Verizon and take it back to your own migrations. My name is Heather Remek. I'm the global head of the Rapid Migration Modernization Program, or RAMP for short, at Google Cloud. I actually spent the first 17 years of my career at Verizon, although Anil and I did not work together. The last 5 years, I led the cloud team there at Verizon. After that, I went to another hyperscaler, and I've been here at Google for about 3 years. You know, it's a good practice to start with a story, you know, get the audience kind of warmed up, but I'm actually a horrible storyteller, one of the worst. So I'm not going to tell a story, but I will share a very, a unique fact about me, which a lot of people find surprising, is I'm actually an archaeologist. I did my master's in archaeology and dug in Israel, several digs there. So I'll spare you a story, but we will dig into the RAMP program. Before I do that, first of all, I'm going to do an overview of the RAMP program, and then I'm going to invite Anil and Sabina up on stage. They're going to do a fireside chat, and that's how you're going to be able to dig into what Verizon did on their migration journey. Okay? So RAMP is a holistic end-to-end framework to help customers and help partners scale and execute migrations to the cloud. Now, migrations have been around for decades. Migrations to the cloud have even been around for a decade or more. And what we found is that technology is not usually the challenge that customers face. It's the people, it's the processes, it's the culture, it's the operations that they face. So what we've done is we've put together prescriptive guidance, we put together playbooks, we put together best practices that we work with our partners, we work with our field teams to help work with customers to implement. And that's what I'm going to cover here. So we've anchored it on 5 pillars of best practices, the RAMP program. The first is business case and executive alignment. This is very, very common sense, but we want to make sure that our partners and our field teams are working closely with the customer to understand and define what that business case is, to help the customer drive that alignment within their organization, both at the executive level and down to the working teams, the cross-functional teams. If this alignment isn't in place, we know that that migration is going to stall. So we work very closely with customers to get that in place. The second is OKRs, measurable objectives and key results. And this helps with the first pillar of best practices and can actually feed into it. What the OKRs are that we're very intentional about is making sure that we work directly with the customer on defining what those objectives are, what those measurable key results are, and that can help them drive alignment within their organization, again, from the executive level all the way down to the field teams. It makes sure, I'm sure you've had engagements like this where you had a set of assumptions, your partner team had a set of assumptions, and they weren't exactly aligned, and you didn't realize it until you got into the middle or the end of the engagement. So having OKRs up front helps mitigate some of those misunderstandings and delays that can happen as a result. The third is strong program governance. Again, this is a no-brainer, but we want to make sure that teams are thinking about this and have a strategy in place ahead, very early on in the engagement, to make sure that we're putting the right kind of governance depending on what that engagement entails. Does the engagement need an executive stakeholder meeting, or does it need daily stand-ups? Does it need weekly meetings? We want to make sure that we've got the right level of governance in place to make sure that that migration or modernization is going to stay on track and the customer is going to meet their objectives. The fourth is a cloud team, or a CCOE. I don't like the term CCOE. I do like the term cloud team, and I'm a little biased. Again, I led the cloud team at Verizon. But this team is a team that's empowered to make decisions about your cloud platform. What regions are you going to be deployed in? What are your IAM roles and policies? What's your security posture? What kind of playbooks are you going to have in place? Your cloud team also helps drive that cultural transformation that needs to take place within your organization. They're going to capture the learnings from the first set of application teams that move. What are those playbooks? What are repeatable blueprints that you can use in your organization? The last is a learning culture. Again, making sure that very early in the conversations with the customer, with the business case, making sure that we've got the right training strategy in place to ensure your teams, I know they're all very, very smart and very capable, right? But that they have the right skill sets for that particular engagement, that they're going to be able to operationalize it and optimize it once it's moved to the cloud. We want to make sure that your teams are set up for success, and that's one of the reasons we've anchored the RAMP program on these 5 pillars of best practices. And as you can see, again, it's not technology, it's the people, the process, it's the operationalization and the culture in the organization. And I will tell you, we were working with a customer that they exited all their data centers. And some of the lessons learned was that they wish they had taken this more seriously early on in their effort to exit their data centers, because it would have mitigated a lot of the challenges they encountered. I don't know if you all are familiar with this 10% tipping point. What this is it was a study that showed that if you can get 10% of an organization or a population to agree or believe in something, it'll bring the rest of your organization along. Again, this is one of the reasons a cloud team and a learning strategy early on is so important, because it can help your organization or your business help bring the rest along to help mitigate issues. This slide shows what can happen, again, if you're using those foundational best practices, you're employing them within your organization and for the engagement. This will help you generate a flywheel effect within your organization. As they build a muscle around evaluating the opportunities, doing the preparation and planning, doing the migration, the validation, and of course sunsetting your old legacy applications, and as they get to the operate and optimize phase, again, all those pillars of best practices, as your team builds the muscle, it's going to help build this flywheel effect within your organization. And as that flywheel starts spinning, you're going to be able to really capture the power of the cloud and what it can do for your business. Now, RAMP is founded on 3 phases. And these, again, probably look very, very familiar to you, right? The readiness assessment phase, making sure that we're doing the right evaluation of the scope of the initiative or broadly of your IT estate, beginning the business case, looking at your cloud capability, and then starting to define those OKRs. Again, you want to do that as early in the process as possible. Those output from that assessment phase, and Google does provide a standard SOW that partners can use, that customers can use on those defined outcomes to get you going. The output will feed into foundations. Again, what is your landing zone going to look like? Your cloud team, what do they need to do? Or getting a cloud team put in place if you haven't done so already. Solidifying the business case, and most importantly, starting to migrate some of your workloads. We don't want your building out the foundations to stay a theoretical exercise. You want to start moving something. We used to challenge customers to move 30 applications in 30 days. That scared a lot of them, so we don't say that out loud anymore. But you want to move some applications so it becomes a practical and the team can learn and tweak their environment as necessary. And then that gets you to the migrate and modernize. And again, building on the output from those first 2 phases and starting to get that flywheel spinning within your organization. Now, within the RAMP program, we have 2 key mechanisms. The first is the migration and modernization deck, which is a little bit of a misnomer because it's actually a workbook. But what this does is it captures where the customer is at against those 5 pillars of best practices. And it helps the team early on identify where there might be some gaps so they can create a strategy around it to make sure that we can mitigate or have a plan so that we don't stall or go off the rails on an engagement. So for example, if a customer does not have a cloud team and maybe they don't want a cloud team for whatever reason, we want to make sure that our field team is working closely with the customer, making sure the customer understands the risk by not having a cloud team, but having a strategy around how are decisions going to be made, who's going to make those decisions, again, so that the engagement, trying to achieve your business case and trying to achieve your OKRs does not get delayed. It also captures the risk, challenges, and blockers. It captures the ramp plan. It captures your OKRs. And it's a flexible, so anything else. We had a customer that was basing their ramp plan on their end of service life hardware. So they brought that information into the migration deck and they were able to define their ramp plan based on that end of service life hardware. So it's a single pane of glass into the overall health, strategy, and progress of a migration. Now we use the MD, we call it for short, to run health checks. In a health check, what we do is the ramp team will read or go through the migration deck ahead of time. And then depending on what's going on, what kind of risk, challenges, and blockers are being identified, we pull extended team members, so it can be from product, it can be from engineering, it can be from solutions, whatever is needed from the team. And we'll pull the partner on, we pull the account team on, and we'll see what we can do to triage some issues to make sure we can unblock it for the customer. And one of the other things I wanted to point out for the migration deck is it's a great onboarding document as well. Because it captures everything that's going on, as people go in and out, you've seen this with your partners, you've seen it in your own teams. If you're a customer, you've got people cross-functionally that are coming in and out. They can go through and read the migration deck or the migration modernization deck and know exactly what's been going on. They know what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to measure that success. They know what the risk, challenges, and blockers are that have been going on. And so it quickly reads somebody into the engagement. Now, as part of the RAMP program, we also have what's called RAMP pillar programs. We have RAMP for databases, for data analytics, for storage and mainframe, and we have some others that we're bringing on. The RAMP for database, for example, we have a pillar program that if you're moving from commercial databases to AlloyDB, we have incentives to help customers mitigate some of the bubble costs, for example. We have SMEs or a center of excellence that will help. Storage team has a red carpet service. If you're moving a lot of data, they'll actually assign somebody from the product team to assist. So a lot of pillar programs and more coming. Now this all, it takes a village to do some of these large complex migrations. So of course we've got a great partner ecosystem. This is just a few of the partners that are part of the RAMP program. These partners have data center modernization certifications as well as cloud migration specializations. And now as Sabina and Anil come up to stage, because this is the meat of what you all wanted to hear, I'm just going to share a quote from the Dr. Phil. And this is Dr. Phil Shelley from Datamedica, who worked closely with Verizon on their migration journey. And he talked about, I'm not going to read the whole thing, just call out that, that they were excited to team up with Verizon on their data modernization journey, which not only boosted efficiencies, but also engendered an agile data management strategy Verizon can leverage on their AI journey. This is a great example of how a partner can help customers achieve their big, audacious goals, which Verizon is very good at doing. And with that, I will turn it over to Sabina and Anil.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you for being here. My name is Sabina Joseph. I am part of the Google Cloud Partner team, and I have a dual role. One is helping customers migrate and modernize their workloads onto Google Cloud, and then also working across the Google Cloud product team to help them grow their revenue across ISVs, SIs, and GSIs. I have spent majority of my career working with partners, ISVs, SIs, and GSIs, also with product teams, services, and then leading P&Ls. And Neil, I'm so glad to be doing this session with you. Thank you so much for being here. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sabina, and thank you, Heather. My name is Anil Kumar. I have been with Verizon from last 19 years, and I'm VP of AI and data. I have all the AI engineering, data engineering, and all the platforms with me. And I'm in this field from last almost 10 years. And prior to that, I have built a lot of e-commerce, network products, and many different things in Verizon. And thank you, Sabina. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have or the audience have. I hope my answers can help some of you in doing your own migration.
Absolutely, thank you. We will reserve some time at the end for Q&A, and there will be a mic that'll get passed around for the Q&A. So thank you. So as Heather mentioned, you embarked on this remarkable journey of migrating 30 data lakes, a staggering 7 petabytes of data from on-prem into Google Cloud in just 10 months. Describe that journey for us.
Okay, first of all, let me put a disclaimer. I'm just representing the team. It's not me who did everything. There's a large team behind me who helped us to migrate these data lakes. And basically, we were looking into the North Star architecture, we call it, for the platforms and data strategy. And we were thinking that what we want to do for the migration. And we were looking into because we have Teradata, Hadoop data lakes, we have Exadata, so many different databases which we are using for the data management platform. And at the same time, we divested Yahoo properties. And that was the trigger. Even though we were evaluating different clouds, different hyperscalers, we were about to make a decision that which hyperscaler we want to pick for our data platform modernization. And at the same time, we divested Yahoo, and we were kind of put on this path to migrate all the Hadoop workload to the cloud. And we made a decision that, yes, GCP is our right partner. Google Cloud is the partner we chose, and we started moving there. But before we started the migration, basically, we had to do a lot of discovery. And yes, on the paper, it says 7 petabyte, but we had almost like 20 plus petabyte data on this Hadoop platform. And I think this was one of I won't say this was the biggest, but this was one of the biggest Hadoop cluster we were running in North America. It had almost 4,000 nodes running in this cluster. And I don't know how many of you know, Yahoo was the one who came up with the Hadoop. And we owned Yahoo, so we were kind of, drinking our own champagne or eating our own dog food, whatever you want to call it. And that's why we had this data lake where we were running so many nodes. Now, before we started this migration, we had to do a discovery, and for many reasons. One is we wanted to know what are we getting into. And at that time, we realized there was a lot of stale data, a lot of lakes which were not getting used, and even there was a lot of duplicate data. And I'm sure in your organization also, you will see if you have some code base which is written in 5 years, 10 years, people tend to duplicate, people tend to copy, people tend to create many different things. And that's what we found. And we said, let's do something which is like no regret move. So we started cleaning up the data first before even doing any migration. And during the discovery, we cleaned up everything. At the same time, we tried to figure out that we are taking this to cloud, but we heard from people before us who went to cloud that cloud can get very expensive very quickly. So we had to make sure that we estimate the costs in advance so we don't have big surprises. And so we did all those things, I call it a groundwork, before starting the migration. And once we finished that groundwork, that's when we started the migration. And again, I heard from Heather and you heard from Heather about RAM. We didn't know about this program. Probably this program came after we migrated and modernized. But somehow when I was listening to Heather, it seems we followed the same program, without even knowing that this program, came even after our migration.
Yeah. You mentioned Yahoo being a compelling reason, right, Anil, for setting such an audacious timeline. What adjustments did you have to make to the timeline as you went along, if any?
Lot of adjustments. As I said, that it was a coincidence that we divested Yahoo, and we had to get out of those data centers very quickly. But at the same time, we were on a journey to create the North Star architecture. And in our North Star architecture, we have hybrid strategy, where we have some workloads running on-prem and other workloads running in Google. We try to take a cloud-first strategy and try to run pretty much everything in Google Cloud, except we are a telecom company and we have a lot of regulations. So we have to keep, because of regulation, some workload on-prem, and that's why we came up with hybrid strategy. We had in mind that we will do it in 10 months. We did pretty much all the data lake migrated to cloud in 10 months, except one, and which we usually don't mention because we migrated that data lake to cloud within 10 months. But what we found is that there were so many different technologies we were using, the costs were overrunning. And also we were not achieving what we wanted to achieve. And when I say we were not achieving what we wanted to achieve, I'm sure any one of you who is thinking to migrate or modernize, you will start with why. Why you want to do it? If it's just a migration or modernization just to call that you are in cloud, probably it's going to be, I won't say a failure, but it won't drive those business outcomes what your business is expecting. And that's where we felt that we started with a why, that why we want to modernize, migrate and modernize, and we couldn't achieve that why. And that's where we had to adjust for that one data lake, our timeline, and we took another 5 to 6 months for just that one data lake. So 29 data lakes we migrated and modernized, while one we migrated, but very quickly realized that we couldn't achieve the outcomes which we said we are going to achieve, and that's where we pulled it back and kind of rewrote everything and then moved into cloud. And that's how we were able to achieve the outcomes we were trying to achieve.
Thank you, Anil. We're going to come a little bit later to metrics, but and I'll connect the two. But as you were working on this migration and modernization, I am sure that you had to identify risks, right? So what were some of the risks that you identified? What were some of the risk mitigation strategies that you put in place as you went through this journey?
So one of the things, as I said, we did a discovery, and even though we didn't get enough time to do a thorough discovery, but at the same time, we took a blended approach of migration and modernization, and that's where we said we will achieve this migration within the time frame we need to achieve, but we will take a blended approach of migration and modernization, which means some of the data lakes we just migrated without modernizing. And when I say without modernizing, basically if we had some transformations which were happening in Hive, or we were using Pig, Flink, we were using so many different technologies, HBase, you name it. We were using pretty much every technology. So in some cases, we did not modernize and took everything straight into BQ. Instead, the things were landing into GCS. We were doing all the Hive stuff, and then we put some framework where we were pushing from Hive to BQ instead of directly loading into BQ. And that's how we were able to mitigate some of those risks. Of course, some structure we followed that was also kind of mitigation we put in place. We created parallel work streams to do this migration so we can rinse and repeat. And again, it's easy theoretically. Practically, sometimes it's very different because we had these 30 data lakes. We had to come up with a common design pattern and say, okay, out of these 30 lakes, we can come up with 5 or 6 common design patterns. And then we can develop a run book, and then we can rinse and repeat. So those were some of the mitigation strategies we had in place to make sure that we can achieve within the time frame allocated to us.
Absolutely. Heather mentioned, I know that we all know, right, before you embark on this journey, you have to have alignment within the organization. How can you share a little bit about how you drove executive alignment across your organization?
So it was a two-prong approach. we took a top-down approach and we took a bottoms-up approach. We, early enough, started doing some sort of lunch and learn and very clearly started calling out at working level or mid-level management level, what are the things people can expect when we are in Google? Not only just saying, hey, instead of running Hive query, now you can run BQ query. Instead, we went on a different approach to educate them, okay, how it's going to change your life. What are the benefits you're going to get? And at the same time, we took a top-down approach where we got the alignment with all the high-level executives, and we did a very clear kickoff. So that way, it's kind of a top-down mandate. At the same time, bottom-up approach where we can educate people that what is in it for them when they get to the Google Cloud. And that worked pretty well for us.
Yep. And was this a business or an IT initiative or both?
It was both. Okay. I will say it was both because you can imagine, and I'm sure a lot of you agree with me, if IT only wants to do something, it may not go that well. You have to always bring your stakeholder or business partners along with you. Otherwise, they won't even approve the business case and they won't even fund it. So you will not be able to do it. So it always has to be IT and business. That's a different story that sometime it may be 60% business driven, 40% IT driven, or 60% IT driven, 40%, but they will be always together in this.
Absolutely. We know that large-scale migrations is as much about people as it is about technology. How did you go about driving alignment across the organization?
So basically, we had a couple of things in play for that. One, we had a very clear communication, and that's what I always call why part, that why you want to do this and what business is going to get once we do this migration and modernization. And not in terms of just faster performance or scalability or elasticity. All those are good metrics, and you should care for those. But what are the real outcome business is going to get? For instance, I'll give you one example. What we showcased to our business partners that when we build the customer experience score, because we have something customer experience score, we have almost 120 million customers, and we wanted to know that can we build a customer experience score for every customer on every touch point, whether they walk into a retail, whether they touch us through the digital or call into a call center. Can we build what kind of experience they are getting in real time? And to achieve that in Hive, it used to take us almost like 14 to 16 hours to transform all the data coming in real time from clickstream, from touch point and everywhere. And when we went to Google Cloud, now it's taking less than 2 hours. And that's the scalability of BQ. Again, scalability is for the technology teams, but we had to showcase this to business that they will be able to get that real customer experience score within 2 hours of anything happening to the customer versus they have to wait almost a day. And those kind of business outcomes we had to showcase to make sure that we can buy in from the business. Again, change management, test and get feedback early enough. Also, along the way, celebrate some successes. And that one thing I learned hard way, that when we were doing this migration, when we started migrating data lake by data lake, after a few data lake, we realized that the celebrating success is important. And that will create some champions for you. Yeah. Those will become your ambassador to walk around, talk about what you are trying to achieve and how you're achieving it and what the other people can get out of this migration. So those are some of the things we did.
Absolutely, and talent is near and dear to my heart. You mentioned celebrating the successes, but we also know that achieving success in large-scale migrations like this, Anil, skills are critical. What kind of training strategy did you implement across your teams and organization?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked because I don't think most of the organizations have a ready-made talent sitting around and saying that, oh, I have a lot of Google Cloud experience, let me work on it.
Yeah.
Of course, you need to build that talent. And we, again, took a multi-pronged approach. We did a lot of lunch and learn. We worked with Google and created persona-based trainings. We worked with our L&D partners within Verizon and launched almost 12 different trainings from basic, intermediate to advanced trainings, and those were all persona-based training. What a data engineer can expect, what they need to learn versus an ML engineer versus a cloud engineer. All different kind of personas we built and did those trainings. At the same time, we also took help from SI partners, PSO, you will hear a lot from Google folks. Also, we took some help from the product engineering team because we couldn't have done everything ourselves. So we basically developed these trainings, did a lot of lunch and learn, and made sure that also we infused some talent from outside. Yeah. It was not enough to say we can train everybody and by just upskilling we can do this. We also hired some talent from outside, which is basically ready to go kind of talent.